views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Wow, everyone. Welcome. I want to welcome you. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have all of you here joining us on the Dr. Pat Show, Transformation Talk Radio, and the soon-to-be-released TransformationRadio.fm. Thank you guys for all of your feedback. And, yeah, I mean, we've just recently put up some information that many of you are just really excited about. And you'll be seeing a lot of this information put up on our regular websites. We've put them up on some informational websites we've created because you wanted to find out more. And yeah, the information that I shared with you guys the other day is really true. We didn't need a study to know that you all are both affluent and well-educated and, more importantly, eager to learn. We've known that for 13 years, and that's why today's show is super, super important for all of us. You know, I don't know what it was like for many of you 13, 10, or even 10 minutes ago, but whatever that was, have you ever thought about how you've been influenced by some of the information that got shared with us? Have you ever thought about some of the books you've read, and at the time you read them, thought maybe for yourself, really, is this true? Well, what if you now discover they are? I remember years ago when I picked up a book, Think and Grow Rich, I thought to myself, wow, I don't know. I think that's for the guy that wrote this book, but I wasn't sure if it was for me. But let's fast forward to where we are today. And, it's so incredible that we get to talk to Greg Reed, who is bringing the conversation front and center to the day and time we live in. And this is really a conversation that has to do with thoughts are things. Now, for many of us, probably, I don't know, I had to learn it the hard way. But why are thoughts things? And what does that even mean in our day-to-day lives? Greg joining me here today, filmmaker, motivational speaker, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and much more. But did he actually use what he wrote about? Is that really the key to his success and to our success? Greg, great to have you here today. Thanks for joining me. Yeah, thoughts are things.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I co-authored this book with a gentleman named Bob Proctor that many people know from The Secret and his lifelong lessons and teachings. And we went on a mission. It was really cool. We got to sit down with everyone from Holocaust survivors that were interviewed for Schindler's List to the founder of JetBlue Airlines, from the founder of TED Talks to the creator of holistic medicine, to find out how thoughts become reality.
Well, let me just ask you this question before we dive into this. And I love Bob. And, Bob, by the way, one of the first people that said yes to coming on this show years and years ago, when we first started out. And, back in the day, if you were doing a talk radio show like this, I don't know if anybody can remember this, and you asked somebody like a Bob Proctor to show up on the show and talk to people about positive things, somebody like Bob is one of the folks that said absolutely, and we are forever grateful. But here's a question. Were you guys surprised? Did you have any oh, really moments?
Yeah, quite a few of them, quite frankly. Yeah, at the time and again, because when Think and Grow Rich was produced, as we know, in 1937, the very first 3 words of the book are thoughts are things. And so we went on a mission to find out how that is true, or if it is true. And for myself, I don't believe it is fact, as crazy as it is. I don't think thoughts are things. I think it's thoughts backed by massive action become things. So it's the action behind the attraction that makes our dream come true. You got to think it, feel it, but ultimately you got to take action and you got to do it. And that's the common denominator that we discovered.
And you know what's interesting about that is the thoughts that we have, right, will determine what kind of action we're going to take, right?
I don't know if that's true or not, because, again, according to science, and we got to sit down with the top Harvard people around the world, and they said, on average, we have 64,000 thoughts a day. And unfortunately, 80% of those are negative thoughts. So in real reality, it's not true, because if we actually took action on all of our thoughts, we might run someone off the road who cuts us off, or we might, you have that conversation in your head. I'm going to get home and, my wife's not going to have dinner. I'm going to say this, and they're going to say this, and you have this conversation in your head for 30 minutes and show up and dinner's ready, and you went, oh, my gosh, I just wasted all this time. And we realize that, again, it's not really the thoughts become things, but it's the thoughts backed by massive action become things. If thoughts were things, right this second, I'd probably be a slice of pizza, because that's time for lunch, and so I was asking how long this is going to be so I could order my lunch. But it's as soon as we're done and I order that lunch and I get my pizza, because the thought backed by action will bring me that slice and eventually will become my reality.
I love the quote that you open the book with, and the quote is, "You're a master of your destiny. You can influence, direct, and control your own environment. You can make your life what you want it to be." Napoleon Hill. And for many of us, we didn't know that. For many of us, we thought life is going to happen to us, so we just better, buckle up our seatbelts and go for the ride.
It's so interesting. Well, let me expand on that, because there's another thing that he would say is that we are exactly where we choose to be. So, when you're a kid, you're dictated, what clothes you wore, where you went to school, who your friends were. But as soon as you hit age 10 or so, you start deciding for yourself. And as a growing adult, we are where we choose to be. And God forbid some, medical disaster or situation that we have no control over. In general, in life, we decide the relationships we're in, where we live, what jobs we take, etc. And it's up to us to understand that at any time, if we want a different life, just change those things and our life will change accordingly.
Yeah. I love this, and I love being able to talk with you about this, because, boy, this was quite a journey you went on. Quite a journey of discovery, quite a journey of exploration, and quite a journey that's turned into a book to help people truly create the lives they desire. And, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you about is this phrase success. We hear it over and over and over again. We live in a culture where success is measured. Organizations have performance review, as I like to say, the dreaded performance review. And, I would love for you to talk a little bit about success and how some of the folks that you did get to interview described it.
That's a great question. Success, is what I discovered, is not deemed by money. It's deemed by living a purpose-filled life, meaning that there's a lot of tenured professors, there's a lot of nurses, a lot of firemen that have a very successful life. And so I want to be very clear that success is not deemed by money. But the people that, really came out on top followed something called the success equation. And it'll sound like a fancy math test, but it's not. It's the letter P plus T times A squared plus F equals success. And I'll explain. P plus T times A squared plus F is success. You see these late-night infomercials. The first thing they teach is, as soon as you get it home, it'll fold up neatly to go underneath your bed or in the closet, because that's where it's going to go, right? And you see these guys, they get up with the, big head and big teeth, and they say, go find your P, go find your passion, and the money will follow. And that is a complete lie. Because if you're filled with passion, but you stink at something, you'll never make it. For example, you watch American Idol. 100,000 kids show up, and they're filled with passion, but most of them suck. So if you're full of passion and you suck, you're not going to have success in that chosen field of endeavor. But if you have the P plus the T, you have a shot, and that means talent. If you're passionate about singing and you had talent, a God-given gift, you have a shot. But without the first A, you'll never make it, and that is action. You've got to do something. God helps those who help themselves. But without the second A is the single most important, and that is association. So if you are passionate about singing and you are talented, you're willing to take action and pay your dues, do whatever it takes, associate, align with someone in the music industry who can open up the doors of opportunity, and have the faith that that's your journey, well, you have a shot at success. And it's the people that live a success, a purpose-filled life, follow that equation, whether they knew it or not.
And this is really kind of interesting. Someone asked me a question a long time ago, and they asked me about, where did I study radio? And I thought it was a really interesting question, like, where did I study broadcasting? And I said, I didn't study broadcasting. You know what I studied? I studied my intuition when I dialed a wrong phone number 13 years ago not to hang up. And part of the conversation really has to do with how do we follow the breadcrumbs to get to the place where we want to go? What are the thoughts, the actions, and what have you discovered, Greg, in this incredible book, Thoughts Are Things? But more importantly, what are some of the stories? What are some of the tidbits that, we might learn today to help us at least get pointed in the right direction? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more with the show. Greg Reed joining us here today. Thoughts Are Things. What are you thinking today, folks? What are you thinking today? Are you thinking now that Greg mentioned the pizza? I know I'm thinking about it. I can taste the pepperoni as we speak. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Preceding audio was via a Skype call.
Are you feeling broken from your relationships? Are you second-guessing yourself about friends, family, and lovers? Tune in to the hit show that's creating a buzz in the love-seeking community. Love Seeker Radio, finding love for your authentic self with renowned love coach Heather Lynn. Tired of dissatisfying relationships? Kiss them goodbye and power up your love seeker energy. Coach Heather Lynn reminds you that you can just be you, the beautiful and perfect you. Visit heatherlynncoaching.com to learn more.
Dr. Linda Salvin, Metaphysical Master, now bringing insight and metaphysical abundance to your living room with her spirit-filled candle line, Wicks of Wisdom. Dr. Linda's unique formulations of pure and powerful herbs, oils, and essences can assist you in love, luck, finances, health, and more. Wait till you experience the power of Wicks of Wisdom. Find out how these amazing candles can help you. See them now and order yours at lindasalvin.com or call 888-509-1077.
This is Lynn Brown from the show Winning at the Game of Life. Listen, it's time to enrich your money stories and open your path to all that you desire. We all have limiting beliefs which we accumulate from our life experiences, ancestors, and past lives. These beliefs block our ability to receive the unlimited flow of abundance that the universe is constantly offering to us. Why are we so emotionally caught up on the word money? It's only one of the many forms of abundance. I'm excited to uncover your unique stories and limiting beliefs around money and abundance, as well as give you tools to release them from your space. It's time to invest in yourself. You deserve everything you ever imagined and more. Call me to schedule a reading at 844 letter B Intuit or letter R letter U Intuit.com.
Lynn was very accurate, and she was so clear in explaining everything to me. I highly recommend Lynn to all of you.
Tired of traditional talk? People pontificating about this or that, the left or the right. Sometimes the truth is just all lost in the noise. Tune in each week to Straight Talk with Chuck Gallagher on TransformationTalkRadio.com, Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, as nationally known guests talk about what's important to you, your life, your concerns, and your success. Tune in and turn on to Straight Talk with Chuck Gallagher. Visit ChuckGallagher.com for more information.
Do you want to transform your life's trauma and challenges into the gift that your life was meant to be? It's time for you to take control of your soul journey to heal, grow, and shine. Manifest your destiny with Wendy Wolf, soul transformer, energy, and psychic healer. To start your soul journey, contact Wendy at healgrowshine.com or email Wendy at wendy@wendyrwolf.com and start your adventure today.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Absolutely should be dancing. Got to shake that booty a little bit. You know what I'm saying? See what falls off down from the tree. Joining me here today, Thoughts Are Things. Greg Reed joining me here. Greg, thank you so much for today. Thank you for joining the show. Before the break, we were talking about thoughts, and we were talking about, thoughts without action, as well as success and how success is defined. And I talked a little bit about the quote from one of the quotes from the book. There are many. I would love for you to share a bit about what some of the folks you got to interview, what they talked about, what did they attribute their unbelievable, phenomenal success. And I say unbelievable for many of us, Greg, we're kind of like, wow, am I ever going to write the book? Am I ever going to, have a success? Am I ever going to be, Mr. TED Talk? And so there's this question mark where we start to think things that would cause us to believe that we won't. So I would love for you to share some of the stories about what people shared about success and if they had a tipping point or a turning point.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. My brain's kind of going to all the different Rolodex of interviews we did on that. And by the way, we're talking about this show here on KKNW. 10 years ago, I had a show for 2 years on this exact station, Positive Choice Talk Radio. And that's how I got my start interviewing people, and that's what led to me actually doing these books within the Point Hill Foundation. How's that for a 6 degree of separation? I don't know if you knew that or not. I love that. Yeah, it's kind of neat. So I used to always say, hey, this is Positive Choice Talk Radio right here, KKNW, Seattle Choice for Talk. That was so fun. So here's the thing: is out of all these interviews that we did, one of the common threads is that people always saw an opportunity in disguise. And people always want to complicate and stuff and think it's really difficult, but it's not. And so I'll give you an example. One guy named Doug Pick, he invented something called Heroes Hearing Plugs. Now, no big deal. It's just earplugs. And the whole concept is that he goes, I took something that's been around forever, created a new spin, and became the #1 leading source of earplugs worldwide. And I go, well, how'd you do that? He goes, well, it's the same concept as seeing something that's already there, but just perfecting it and making your own. I go, give me an example. And he says, well, back in the day, Good Humor, they had a little department store, and someone came out with Eskimo pies, and the daughter didn't like eating them because they were a mess. So the father took a stick that was already in existence. It was a stick, ice cream that was already in existence, and put that stick inside the ice cream, and then dipped it into melted chocolate, which is already in existence, and created Good Humor ice cream bars. And by doing that, became the world's largest distributor of novelty ice cream products. Now, I realized that almost all successful people took something that was already there and recrafted it to their own way. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just put a new hubcap on it.
I love that. Someone said to me a long time ago, and I'd love for you to comment on this. They said to me, Pat, don't reinvent the wheel. Right now, guess what? There really isn't an original thought on the planet. And I really worked hard to try to see if that was true. I was like, what did you just say to me? And I think what he was saying to me is, and I understand what he was trying to say to me and coach me about. And I think what he was saying was, look, we stand upon the shoulders of those that have come before. Have you found that to be true or not in talking to some of the people you talked with?
Yes and no, and everything in between.
Right.
Again, it comes down to our thoughts become realities by the actions we take behind those thoughts. That's what it comes down to. And also, people that are very successful learn that they work their strengths and they hire their weaknesses. They don't try to do it all. So, for example, in my business, I am not a great writer, even though I got 56 books in 45 countries and worldwide and all that good stuff. I'm not a great writer, but I'm a great storyteller, happens is I hire amazing ghostwriters and copy editors to take my stories and craft them in a way that people will read them in a book. And by working my strengths and hiring my weaknesses, we make a great team, and we can impact the lives of millions. It's that simple.
I love what you just said, because I'm going to have to talk to you after the show, because that's what I'm discovering about myself. Isn't that fascinating? You know, everybody that I have ever talked with that is in the publishing field say, you got to write the book, you got to write the books. And I'm kind of like you. I'm like, wow, that is not my strength and forte. But now I just heard I don't have to have that strength and forte. But
Absolutely
there is
not.
a strength. Yeah.
So this is kind of like there's no Santa Claus. This one, you know, there's a big difference between being an author and a writer. They're usually two different people. So, for example, an author is the name who goes on a book, and the person who's writes is called a writer. So it's the same thing if you hear Katy Perry singing "Fireworks." It doesn't mean she necessarily wrote that song, but she's the author, the performer of that song. So it's her still voice, it's her everything, it's her twist, but you got someone else that created it. And so what I do is I surround myself with amazing people that can help take my words and put the music to it so it comes out for the world that they'll actually be entertained to listen to.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question. I know you're really clear in the book. You know, I want to talk about the power of possibility. You know, I love this chapter, and I love what you said about it. And, you know, it's the world that I've learned to really embrace, you know, by asking the question, what else is possible here? But in this chapter, you do talk about thought plus action is the ultimate formula plus success for success. And, you know, I wanted to ask you about thought and a couple different sides of it, Greg, if we could. You know, if I think that I'm less than, does that mean that I am less than? And you know what I'm trying to say is if I just think that thought and have doubts about who I am or my potential, and I'm using me as the guinea pig for the moment, you know, then those thoughts, even if I don't take action towards, quote, failure, are those thoughts enough to point me in a direction that I don't want to go?
Yeah, I would say that there's a possibility of that happening, and that's why I'm such a stickler of surrounding yourself with positive, like-minded people, or people that will actually go in the same direction as you. So, for example, if you want to take a train to Wyoming, you got to get on the same train that's going to Wyoming. If you're going to Kentucky and then complain you never get to Wyoming, well, that's your fault. You got on the wrong train. That's how I look at association. So, for example, if we are a reflection of the people we hang around the most, and our income, our attitude, and our lifestyle is the average of the group, it makes sense to hang out with the most like-minded individuals possible so that we can get those results. So for myself, I only surround myself with the people that are actually doing it. I don't hang around people that complain, gripe, and moan. Understand this. The most successful people seek counsel where failures listen to opinion. I'm going to give you the difference.
Yeah.
Opinion is based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, inexperience, like a family friend who's never done what you're about to do. Counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship, someone who's already created success in that path. Because if you go to someone who's never written a book and say, hey, I'm going to write one, like a family friend, they might say, you can't do that. You'll say, why not? I don't know. You just can't. That's their opinion. If you go to Bob Proctor, who's written all kinds of books, and say, hey, I want to write one too, he'll say, before you get started, here's what you need to know and give you counsel based on that wisdom, knowledge, and mentorship. The days that we start seeking counsel and ignore people's opinions, that's the day your life will change.
I want my life to change. I'm listening to this show. I want my life to change. And I want it to change in ways that I just don't even understand at this point in time. And yet I come from a place where I have heard most of my life I won't achieve much. I want to take a short break. When we come back, Greg, I want to ask you about, first of all, I want to ask you for yourself, what are some of the obstacles? What are some of the challenges that you were able to overcome? And what would you say to people that are in the moment of challenge themselves? We're going to come back. We're going to tell you how to get a copy of the book, how to find out more about Greg, and much more. What a great conversation this is today. And, you know, I always love it. I feel so blessed some days about hearing conversations I absolutely need to hear today and get my myself salivating over that pepperoni pizza that I'm probably not going to have today. Let's take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back with the show.
I say I'm too late. Got nothing in my brain. That's what people say. That's what people say. I go on too many dates, but I can't make them stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.
Enlightening, humorous, and compassionate. Listen live to The Kelly Ballard Show, insight and inspiration from the great beyond. Kelly is a fourth-generation medium and intuitive who covers topics ranging from grief, spirit guides, and listening to your intuition. Kelly can help you get answers and guidance from the other side with a little bit of humor and a lot of healing. Tune in to The Kelly Ballard Show, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific Time here on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Chris Stanis is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
What does a Dentist of the Year get? A little plaque. Welcome to Smile Big, where we offer cosmetic, restorative, and preventative dentistry. Dr. James Rosenwald and Dr. Susan Abdenur work hard every day for their clients to be happy to smile with the latest equipment for complete smile restoration for anyone. The sooner you call, the sooner they can help. Call 425-454-4040 or email scheduling@smilebig.com. You can even visit our website at smilebig.com.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
Dr. Love's Quickies.
Mary's about ready to give Love the shove, because no matter what she tries, guys don't know that she's alive. To turn guys on, she needs to turn on those green lights, nonverbal cues that say, over here. Most guys won't approach unless they're cleared for landing. So ladies, to kickstart your love life, turn on those green lights and flash your pearly whites. I'm Dr. Jamie Turndorf of AskDrLove.com.
Wondering how to play the game of life and actually win? Stop wondering and start winning the game of life with the unique, incomparable Lynn Brown. Lynn takes everyday aspects of life and infuses them with the magic of soul and passion to help others. She wants to help you next. Lynn offers a myriad of spiritual healing, from chakra clearing, aura healing, to even corporate and business readings. Bring your game face and visit letter R, letter U, intuit.com or call 844-letter-B-INTUIT.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Wow, welcome back, everyone. Greg, before we kind of jump into this conversation, a little bit more, a little bit deeper, talk about these obstacles, these challenges, for lack of a better word, I would love for folks to know how they can find out more about you, how they can get their own copy of the book, and anything else you would like to share with us so that we can up-level our lives here today.
Well, I appreciate that. My website is bookgreg.com. However, just go to any Barnes & Noble bookstore and pick up a copy of Thoughts Are Things or any of the other books. I've been in like 50-some-odd books now, 45 different languages. And the whole idea is that pick out one that resonates with you, and then in the back of it's my contact information. If I can be of contribution, reach out, let me know.
I love it. Thank you for your generosity. I really appreciate it. And thank you for taking a full hour here to chat with us. For those of you out there that want to weigh in, you want to have a question for, Greg joining us here today, please feel free to do so. I mean, this is just a super opportunity to connect with him directly. You want to turn your life around. You want to do something different. 1-800-930-2819. Toll free, right into the show, 1-800-930-2819. Or for many of you that are not able to call in, you go right to our instant feedback app and, just type in the question. You could either do it on Transformation Talk Radio or the Dr. Pat Show. Either way, we'll make sure we get your questions up here today. Greg, before the break, I was talking about obstacles, and it's a question that I started asking 13 years ago. And the question is, what are some of the challenges and obstacles that you had to overcome to bring you to this very moment? And do some of the other folks that you've chatted with and reflect in the book, did they have obstacles?
Of course. I mean, the whole concept here is how you turn an obstacle into an opportunity. And, it's interesting. One interview I did many years ago in a different book, his name's Truett Cathy, started Chick-fil-A restaurant. And I said, you're a billionaire. I'd like to be a billionaire. What do I do different? And he said, stop planning. I went, what? I go, that goes against everything we ever learned. He goes, last year you had a lot of plans. I go, yeah. He goes, how did that work out for you? I go, not so good. He says, well, you might hit a goal from time to time because you take action, but how it came to be, that guarantee didn't go as you expected. He goes, look for unexpected opportunity and capitalize on it. I go, what do you mean? He says, well, if I want to get from my house to the end of the street, that's my goal. I have to get off my backside and take action and move towards that direction. A planner is going to plan every step where they're going to pause and take a break. I'm going to look for opportunity. Did a kid leave a skateboard or a bicycle out and make my journey shorter? He goes, if I get lucky, I'll wave down a neighbor who's driving by and I'll hitch a ride to the end of the street. He goes, either way, I'll get to my goal, my destination. I just really don't get caught up in exactly how it has to happen. And I realize that all great leaders have this in commonality. They have a crystal clear picture of what they want and have the stickability that nothing, including themselves, will hold them back.
And let's talk about that too. For those of us out here, our obstacles, our challenges become places of stickability in a not so hot way, right? And what I mean by that is we get stuck in the story. So, we're talking about some of the stories, some of the insights that you guys brought forth in this book. There are also some of the stories that show up. And I believe that you reflect some of this. And this, I have to tell you, this is my favorite chapter in the book. So you could probably understand what's going on in my life. Silencing the critics, right? Silencing the critics.
Right. And I've got a good one of that
one.
Good,
go for it.
I have a great mentor. His name is David Corbin, and he wrote a book called Illuminate. And he says, back in the day, they had the Dancing Bears, and they had a song that says, "You've got to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative." And he says, no. He goes, nowhere in PMA, positive mental attitude, personal development, does it say you have to run away from reality. He says you have to accentuate the positive and illuminate the negative. So I'll give an example. For those of you that are interested in buying Thoughts Are Things, the book with Bob Proctor and I encourage you to go to Amazon.com. And you'll notice the first thing, someone just wrote a recent review saying, this is the worst book ever written in the history or what have you. And that's part of the reality. So instead of me being afraid that people will see it, I'll send an email to everyone on my email list. And I'll say, hey, look, 148 people say that this is the greatest book they've ever read. One guy says it sucks. I go, what do you think? And I'll put a link to it. So now instead of me having to hide or being cautious of that, I actually go into it. And I realize that if you can actually face your fear and go in directly towards it, it tends to just go away. Illuminate the negative, boom, it magically disappears.
We give things like that a lot of power, don't we? We really do. We give things like that a lot of power. And I want to ask you a question about how do we, and what would you say? I mean, there are a lot of stories in this book, and certainly a lot of what you've shared already. But I want to let me just say, I want to pump myself up. You know what I'm really struck by? Here's what I'm really struck by today. You ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is in a movie. I mean, we're doing another Terminator movie. this guy is like an Energizer bunny. Now, how does an Arnold Schwarzenegger with the Terminator, what was he in his 20s? I don't know, a million years ago. Now people are hungry to go see Arnold now, 20 plus years later, in the latest Terminator. And, somebody said to me, wow, he doesn't think he's too old. So I would like for you to talk about, what are some of the things we can do so that we do not get stuck in the story. And I love that we were talking about Bob, stuck in the story of I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm not enough this. What have you discovered from these people to help them move beyond the lack of self-worth they may or may not have discovered in their lives?
I think it goes back down to that success equation.
Yeah.
And also people realize that, for the first 50 years of our life, we stop and we tend to take a breather at kind of halftime. And we look around and go, my gosh, I just spent a half a century to get where I'm at now. And wherever that is, you go, that wasn't very monumental after all. And you think, wow, what can I do for this second half that's a little bit brighter or different than what I've done already? And so we have that Etch-a-Sketch moment. And so a lot of people are redefining themselves. One of my friends that's, in the book, his name is Brian Smith, who founded UGG Boots. And, this guy's, creeping up on 70 years old, and he's right now starting a new thing called Boom-Upreneur. And the whole idea is the boomer generation is the next line of entrepreneurs that you're going to see, people that have, realized that doing things one way haven't worked, or they have worked and they want to reinvent the wheel and do it themselves in their own way with a new hubcap, like we were talking about earlier. And so, I think that you're going to see in the future a whole new generation of entrepreneurs, but they're not going to be these 20-year-old kids. They're going to be the boomapreneurs, the next generation that comes out to start creating something that's absolutely magical.
I want to talk about magic for a minute. Magical, mystical, and memorable. The lives that, many people want to create but don't know where to get started. Is there a point, or is there a starting point? And here's my question for you, because this is really a lesson I learned from my stepmom. Yes, there's a starting point, but what have you discovered? What do people say, Greg, when they've started off like shot out of a rocket, and then they have to take 5 steps back? What have you discovered about perseverance/persistence?
Never let your mistakes, setbacks, or circumstances determine your value as a person. Imagine, I remember meeting with Genevieve Boss, who started Pink Magazine, and I said, man, I feel like such a failure. I have a bad case of the Eustis. She goes, what's that? I go, well, I used to have a real nice house. I used to have a nice car. I used to have all this. And she goes, never let your mistakes, setbacks, or circumstances determine your value as a person. I says, well, that's easy for you to say because you're rich. And she reached in her purse, and she pulled out a $100 bill. And she goes, here, do you want this? I go, yeah. And she goes, why? I go, it's $100. I could use that money right now. And she crumpled it in my face. She goes, here, do you want it? I go, yeah, absolutely, I could use that money. She throws it on the ground. She steps on it like a cigar butt. And she goes, here, do you still want it? And I go, yeah. I go, I could really use that cash. And she looks at me in the eye, and she goes, then why is it in life when you get kicked, you get beaten, you get crumpled, thrown to the ground, and stepped on, you think your value as a person changes? Just as that $100 bill is still worth $100, what you just went through proved that you would not break and you would not tear. So never let your mistakes or setbacks determine your value as a person.
Wow. And so often we do. I want to ask you this. How affected do you think we are by the media? I mean, earlier in the show, we referenced the infomercial. Oh, my gosh. They're getting so good these days, those infomercials. My gosh, how many credit cards can we pull out and buy whatever they're selling in a nanosecond? Do you think we are really, the folks that are waiting for the next Kardashian move? Or are we going to flip a switch here? Is something changing in consciousness from your point of view?
You'd have to just go by history, and history would tell us that, yes, we were going to follow the sheep mentality. Because that's the way it's been. That's the way it has been since the beginning of time. And I believe that certain people are enlightened. Certain people see the outside part or the opportunity of what is possible. But in general, I think the majority of people are wanting to follow status quo. I mean, look at all the millionaires that are popping up in China and all over the world, and their first goal is to catch up with the Joneses of America to buy those TVs and the cars and the thing. It's a general thought process right now. And so, fortunately and unfortunately, want to look at it, that's the reality. But the people that understand that that's the way it's going and can capitalize on it, they're the ones that are going to come out on top.
Yeah. Wow. You know, one of the things that we'll talk about when we come back, and joining me here today is Greg Reed. One of the things we'll talk about when we come back is, looking at some of these, common denominators to success. What are some of the things that will help us pull ourselves up? And when you put it all together, how close are we to winning the gold? Let's take a short break, everyone. You're listening to the Dr. Pat Show. Greg Reed, my very special guest. Thoughts are things. When we come back, got a couple questions coming from the audience. We'll pop them up here real quick, as well as talking about going for the gold. Stay tuned. We'll be right back, everybody.
We're 1,000 miles from comfort. We have traveled land and sea. But as long as you are with
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.
In retirement, will you have enough money to live life on your terms? Everyone has retirement questions, so ask Ameriprise financial advisor Jeff Packman about the new Confident Retirement Approach. You and Jeff can break down retirement planning step by step to get the real answers you need. Call Jeff Packman, financial advisor, today at 425-453-0272. Office is located at 601 108th Avenue Northeast, Suite 1800, Bellevue, Washington, 98004. The Confident Retirement Approach is not a guarantee of future financial results. Investment advisory products and services are made available through Ameriprise Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Ameriprise Financial Services, Inc., member of FINRA and SIPC.
You got attitude? Keys to the rescue. Adjust your attitude with Keys Clear Protein Waters. So refreshing. Just a few sips of Keys will give you a whole new outlook, thanks to 22 grams of the happiest protein on earth. Tongue-tingling tasty without the guilt of naughty or nasty ingredients. If that doesn't put a smile on your face, maybe you need to drink too. Put a little woohoo in your attitude with Keys Protein Water. On Amazon or at Keys, Kees, please.com.
Sky Siegel co-hosts one of today's most popular psychic shows, Angels and Answers, with Artie Hoffman, as she communicates healing messages from the spirit world. These messages can be astounding, enlightening, and life-changing. Born with the God-given talent of inner guidance and the amazing ability to heal, Sky has healed thousands of people. Schedule a reading with Sky now. Call 908-500-1474 and visit skyofangels.com.
Called the Oprah of radio by her listeners, award-winning host Dr. Pat Baccili is blowing the doors off of traditional talk radio. Get ready for an energizing delivery and powerful interviews with leaders in the field of human potential. Dr. Pat's fresh, new perspective on living life full out has catapulted her show to the top of talk radio. Tune in and Dr. Pat will help you thrive instead of merely survive. Visit thedrpatshow.com. That's THEDRPatshow.com for listening times in your area.
Hi, I'm Leslie Fontaine with Sheer Alchemy on Transformation Talk Radio, and here's your tip of the day. What happens after we shift? An energetic shift can be disconcerting. When you shift from the known to the unknown, you literally are going into unknown territory without the former rules and constraints that held you in check. You feel happiness and joy, but you're nervous about not knowing what's next. Even happiness can be unfamiliar. You just don't have the guardrails. No one's telling you, it's dangerous, stop, you'll get hurt. Plunge in, leap, taste it. Listen to your intuitive guidance. Let yourself step beyond the boundaries that you've known and challenge yourself to listen to your intuitive guidance, to your higher self, and learn what you were placed here to do. I'm Leslie Fontaine. Visit me at lesliefontaine.com or call 678-665-3366.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
No place I'd rather be. I would away forever, exalted in the sea.
Wow. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Dr. Pat Show, Talk Radio to Thrive By. Joining me today, Greg Reed, co-author with Bob Proctor thoughts are things. And, there's much more you can find out about this, for sure online. But the book is really, jam-packed. Greg, one more time, if you could tell folks again, the best way to find out more about you, and literally they can pretty much get the book just about anywhere, right?
Correct. Yeah. Again, my website is bookgreg.com, and you can go to any bookstore, especially Barnes & Noble, and pick up any of the books on the shelf. And again, in the back is my contact information. Just feel free to reach out if I could be of contribution, and the answer will always be yes.
Awesome. I wanted to kind of talk about going for the gold. And, what does that actually mean when we say going for the gold? Sometimes I look back at my life, and instead of playing to win, I played not to lose. And I've thought about that often. And so I'd like to know, from what you've discovered in writing the book and from your own experience, what does going for the gold look like?
Again, there would just be my interpretation. However, one of the interviews I've done before was with three-time gold medalist in the Olympics, Leo Maka Bryan, and I said, how in the world did you, accomplish such a feat? And she goes, what I did is called singular focus. That's how I have what's called balance. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, when I was on the field, I focused just on winning the game. That's it. I didn't focus on laundry, my husband, nothing, because I just focused on winning the game. He goes, at home, I focused on my kids, and I was a great mom, and that's all I focused on. Because with my husband, the same thing. And by having that singular focus at that moment, I could give each person my undivided attention. And by doing so, I could juggle many things at one time. And that's how she won the gold. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in life.
And, for those of us here sitting here and, looking at what we focus on, what we put our attention on, it's really fascinating when we look back at the day and we ask ourselves, how did we spend the day? Does technology and social media help us? How does this world we live in today either help us or hinder us to get to the places we want to go?
Well, again, it depends how you use it, like anything else. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing, if we do non-income producing activity, for example, if we just hang out on Facebook with our friends and family and check on every, barking dog image and video, well, chances are we can't complain that we're not having prosperity in our life because it's non-income producing activity. On the same note, if you're on and you're combining your family activity with promoting your products, goods, and services, and kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and that's kind of a relief. And it's all how you look at it. So it depends upon how you use it, but more importantly, if you're addicted to it or if you're using it as a vehicle. It's the same thing of anything we have in life, whether it's drugs, alcohol, what have you. Anything in moderation is one thing, but when we're addicted to something or we're using it too much and it becomes obsessive, well, then that becomes a challenge no matter what the topic we're talking.
It does become a challenge, doesn't it? And, somewhere along the way, we discover what those challenges are and what they're not. I wanted to ask you this, one of the things, the subtitle of the book is Turning Your Ideas into Reality. And it really leads me to ask you about creativity and the power of creativity and, what you discovered when you did interview these folks out here. How did they tap into these ideas? How did they tap into that place that we don't talk about very much in our culture? We don't really talk about creativity all that much.
Well, it's interesting. Charles Hennell was a philosopher, and Napoleon Hill learned a lot of his teachings from him. And he talked about something called tapping the source. And what that means is, in the middle of the night, all of a sudden you have that great $1 million idea, or in the shower, it's because you're relaxed and you can actually tap into vibration that's bigger than yourself. Sounds kind of woo-woo, but the realities are, in the airways right now, there's country music, rap music, and classical. But if you took a receiver, dialed it into a frequency, you could pull it down. Successful people understand that next deal, that relationship, health, wellness is also right there. And certain people know how to dial into it. That's why you find people that aren't as smart as you have more success than you, or not as good looking as you have a better looking spouse. The realities are certain people know how to dial into the frequency, and the successful people tap into it each and every day.
And are there any secrets to doing that?
Yeah, you got to release the hamster wheel in which we're on. So the whole thing is that, again, our brains have 60,000 thoughts a day, And unfortunately, the majority are negative, but more importantly, they're on a hamster wheel. So what you do is you think about what you're about to eat, and then all of a sudden you think about how, you want to get done with work, and then maybe it's your relationship and something's going on, and then maybe it's your kids, and then maybe it's your dream vacation, and then that wheel starts all over again. And so what happens, we get on this thing until we have something called a pattern interruption. We can't break that train, the hamster wheel, and get off it to go do something else. That's why when you get in the shower and you finally release yourself at night and you let go of the hamster wheel, that's when those ideas start tapping into.
Well, this is really, many of us, have talked about the fact that, we get our best ideas in the shower for sure. And how that turns out for us is different for each of us because we're all very unique in our own ways. I wanted to ask you about the idea, and you talk about this in the book, of the overnight success. There are some people where we look and we say, oh my gosh, Joe is an overnight success. He went from zero to sensation. And, is there such thing as an overnight success? Or is that a myth that we have?
I think it feels like you're fishing for the answer of, everyone, it takes 20 years to become overnight success, but that's really not true. I found many, many examples of people that have amazing, tremendous success real fast. For example, the founders of Instagram, with 16 employees, they, grow something from an idea to a billion-dollar business that is sold to Facebook in 18 months. And there's many of these examples that there are pretty quick successes. The whole idea is tapping into your passion plus your talent, taking action, and having that alignment, that association of door of opportunity, and having the faith you're destined. That's where things start popping for you. So the answer is yes, there can be simple little things. But you can also go back and say, well, I put in and paid my dues to have those things come together, and that's a true fact as well. But as far as having a success pretty quick, you can do it.
First of all, I want to thank you for joining me here today. I want to thank you for, taking this message out and really writing a book that people can read, follow, and do, and take inspired action. I want to thank you for today. One last question. What is your personal message, Greg? What would you like to leave us with today?
In the end, the extent of our own success will be measured by the accomplishments that we help in others, meaning that it's not all about what we do. And they're pumping our chest and, we're on our final days. They're not going to look out the window and ask what cars we drove up in. They're going to ask what kind of life you lived. And so for me, the whole goal is to leave it all out on the field. I will never, ever go to my final day saying I wish I would have. Success, fail, in between, doesn't make a difference. Everything pops in my head, I'm going to take action and go do. So that way we can have a life that's one that's been lived.
I love it. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. And one more time, give out your website.
Yeah, it's bookgreg.com, and go into any bookstore and pick up Thoughts Are Things by Bob Proctor and myself. And if there's anything I can do to be of contribution, the answer is yes. Thanks for having me on the show, and I look forward to talking soon.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And again, thoughts are things, turning your ideas into reality. And one of the things I want to say is thank you to Greg, thank you to Bob in writing this book. One of the things I want to say to all of you out there, and this is kind of cool, is that there is a quote, another quote in the book, and I just want to read it and end the show with this. And you can read this for yourself when you get the book. All the breaks you need in life wait within your imagination. Imagination is the workshop of your mind, capable of turning mind energy into accomplishment and wealth. We'll take a short break, everyone. We'll be right back with the show.